If you have a whole bunch of fabric prints and solids on hand to make this quilt but have no idea how to go about planning and arranging them for your quilt, no worries, I got you. Currently, I am making the 32 fat quarter version, and that can seem like an overwhelming amount of fabric to organize for a quilt, but my go-to method is to group the fabrics. Here I've arranged them all into 4 groups of 8 fabrics each, a creamy pinkish group, a tan group, a yellow-green group, and a purple-ish group. There are 2 things I want you to know when planning and arranging fabrics. First, the hearts will go in rows, and each row uses 2 fabrics in alternating fashion. This brings me to the second thing I want you to know, and it's that each fabric will be touching the fabric it's paired with in its row, along with 2 other fabrics in the row above it and the 2 more in the row below. That means each fabric is going to touch and coordinate with 5 other fabrics. One way to plan your quilt is to aim for an ombre effect, starting with lighter colors and then slowly getting darker down the quilt. That means you will assign your fabrics 1, 2, 3, starting with a lighter color and gradually getting darker. This will create an absolutely gorgeous effect, but I will say that if you have fabrics of the same color, like these 2 in my pile, your hearts will be less pronounced and might blend into each other a little bit too much, which is something you will want to be aware of if that's what you're choosing to do. You can also plan it so that it goes from a light fabric to a dark in the middle and then back to light at the other end. This way it can ombre itself into the middle and back out. If you want your hearts to be fully pronounced and balanced in your quilt, you can delegate your fabrics from each pile in succession. I am going to go for a compromise between the ombre effect and a balanced effect by first organizing each of the piles from light to dark and then choosing fabrics from each category as I assign them delegation numbers. That way the quilt will start out a little lighter but end up a little darker, and the colors will still feel balanced out between all the rows. I think I've decided on a layout for my quilt, so I'm going to arrange the fabrics into pairings for the rows that I think they're going to be in. Keep in mind that each row will use 2 fabrics and that the 2 fabrics will be touching the pairings of fabrics that are placed in the row above it and below it. If you feel alright with the combination of fabrics that you see, next would be a great time to make your fabric swatches. I've cut a tiny corner of each fat quarter, making sure to include any distinguishable characteristics of that fabric. Then I sew them directly onto my paper. I recommend posting the swatches nearby where you can easily glance up and look at it to remember which fabric has which as you make the quilt.